After a long wait, welcome to the newest episode of Gold Rush here on the JTR Podcast Network on YouTube. This is Mark Ribben coming to you from the Noodles position in Champaign, Illinois, joined as always by my buddy Jabari Sinclair.
Hey,
Bari,
hey,
it's
what's
been it's
happening?
been too long. It's been almost a month since we did the last one.
Right? Well, life happens, and we have to do what we have to do, and just thankful we can be together today.
That's right. That's right. Uh, we got a good one today. All the ones we've done so far have been pretty much like the big companies, Bari, like WWF, WCW, NWA, whatever. We're kind of going back to the indies for this one, and it's one that I know is very close to my heart, and I'm sure as well as yours. But today we are going to be talking about the original Ring of Honor World Heavyweight Championship belt from
Yeah,
2002 through 2010. Uh, Something I love about this, and I'll put this back up. It's not. We talked about the big gold belt and how awesome it is because it's so ornate. This one, it's very base, very stripped down, but it's
yeah,
just as good.
exactly. Simplicity, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, like you can see, it's got the little flowery pattern on the top and the bottom of the main plate there, and you got the fellows grappling on the side plates. But other than that, it's just it's a silver belt, very simple, easy to read, which is it goes a long way with me. If it's some of those fancy belts, you can't really read what it says on there, but this
Exactly.
it's very clear here. So I've always liked that. It was I did my homework. This one was designed by the late great Reggie Parks, the King of Belts, as well as the other belts that ROH was using at the time. You see behind me, I've got my own replica of the tag titles from 2004 through 2010, and very similar design, same plate, pretty much. The only big difference is that it's got the black lettering
Black lettering.
on the
Yeah,
logo, and then the side plates are slightly different. But this one, uh, the company debuted in February of 2002, and they went about 5 months without having a world champion. They did after about 3 months. They held their tournament for to decide who was going to challenge for the title, and they wound up going with a four-person Iron Man match on July 27th, 2002. And I want to see if I can find the brackets for this tournament because it's kind of like it's almost like a who's who for the indies back then. It's
yeah. For back in the day, yeah, yeah,
because you hear it and you see a bunch of people from that you'll wind up hearing in TNA, WWF, like they used to be on like Jacked and Velocity and those kind of shows. But they had it set up like I said. It ended as just basically ended with being a four-way final. So the matches in the tournament, Spanky, Brian Kendrick beat Paul London. Jody Fleisch beat Johnny Storm. I believe those are two UK guys that used to show up in ROH back in the day.
Johnny Storm sounds familiar. Yeah.
hmm Christopher Daniels beat the Black Nature Boy Scoot Andrews, which I always chuckled at the nickname. Just there's a, there's a lot of Nature Boys, but Scoot was unique. So, and he
Yeah.
also a hell of an athlete too, by the way. AJ Styles beat Jerry Lynn. Let's see. Brian Danielson beat Biohazard, who I don't remember a lot about Biohazard. I'll have to go back and watch that. Doug Williams beat Jay Briscoe, which that's young Jay Briscoe. This is like 18-year-old Jay Briscoe.
Right.
And then, oh, here you go. Low key knocked out Prince Nana in a match. I don't think he was dancing after that one there,
No,
Bari.
no, no.
Then Amazing Red beat Xavier, who's the guy we'll mention a little bit later on this show. And then the next round, Spanky beat Jody Fleisch, Daniels beat Styles, which I want to find that match because anything they did together in 2002 was gold that I've
Gold.
seen. Uh, I'm sorry, Doug Williams beat Danielson. So kind of remarkable that Brian Danielson wasn't in the finals of the tournament, and he was one of the main guys when they started.
Right.
and then Low Key beat Red. So that was your four-way. It was Low Key, Doug Williams, Chris Danielson, Spanky, in a four-way Iron Man match. And I actually went back. I watched this match today, Bari, and I'm not usually a fan of Iron Man matches.
Hmm.
And I liked how they did this one. Instead of it just being if you get a pin, you get a point, like they all are. They had it set up where if say Chris Daniels pinned Low Key, he gets 2 points. Low Key loses a point. So
Oh, okay. Yeah.
so I mean, despite the fact that made me do math, it was a creative scoring system there.
Right.
Uh,
Very correct.
yeah, great match. Literally, like I said, I'm not a fan of Iron Man matches. This one had me for the whole match, which is really saying something. Uh, Wound up winning. He had 3 points. Daniels had two. Then I don't think Williams had a point, and Spanky was like -1. I think in the final tally there. So Low Key is your first Ring of Honor champion. The last person to hold this belt was Claudio this past March. Supercard of Honor, they debuted that new belt that they've got. But from Final Battle 2021 through Supercard of Honor, they brought back that original belt for Gresham, then Claudio and Jericho in this new iteration of Ring of Honor.
Hmm.
Let's see, longest reign, Samoa Joe, 21 months and 4 days. That's for a while that was unheard of to have a belt
Exactly.
that long. It's kind
Yeah.
of
That's
coming.
almost. It's
It's kind of
almost.
coming back these days though,
Yeah.
because like Gunther had it for like 800 some odd days. Pete Dunne, I think, had the UK title for like 500 days. Of course, Roman, our buddy AJ's talking about Roman's on track to pass Bruno with his title reign. But uh, but yeah, for a while it was Van Dam 2 years with the TV title, and then it was Joe, and then after that it's just everybody will hold it for a few months at a time. It seemed like,
Exactly.
but yeah, and then the feuds that Joe had were fantastic. Homicide, Punk, Danielson. It goes on. Shortest reign, kind of a dubious distinction. James Gibson. Everybody might know him better as Jamie Noble in WWE, WCW. 1 month and 5 days. He's the guy that beat
Yep.
Punk and wound up losing it to Danielson.
To
In
Danielson. Yep.
yeah. Oh, Stacy's distracting me. She just found a raccoon at the park. She's out for her walk, and her brother just told her to pick it up. I hope she doesn't.
I hope not either.
Uh, yes. All right. So let's run through the list here, Bari, of our
All right.
championship lineage. It's not a long list. I mean, here's the thing. It was 8 years, but number one, most of the people that held this title held it for a good chunk of time.
Full chunk of
There
time.
weren't a,
Exactly.
there weren't a,
Yeah.
there weren't a lot of transitional champions. Like we said,
No.
Joe had it for 2 years. Danielson had it for about a year and a half. McGuinness had it for longer than that. And
Exactly. And then like
yeah,
this particular chunk of the list is like, yeah, the who's who of like early Ring of Honor. Yeah.
hmm
So
and it seems like the only guys that held it for less than 3 months were the ones that were going to WWE or leaving the
yeah.
company.
Yeah, that's
So
what it looks like.
yeah. All right. So first off, we mentioned him. Here you see him low key,
Ah, low
and
key, the little man with the deep voice.
oh yeah, and not a guy you want to mess with. Those kicks are
Not at all.
something.
Not at all. If he says do
There
something in the
was
ring, you better do it.
uh-huh. Yes, sir. He's got that
Yeah.
Cobra level bar. He's sir. He's got sir status.
E-
Uh,
exactly.
I saw a match. He had 2006 TPI IW Mid South. He had actually wrestled Davey Richards, and it was basically a kick fest, just knocking the shit out of each other for a good 15 minutes. And yeah, it's not a lot of guys can hang with low key in the kick department, but
Right. Yeah.
Richards did. So,
No,
and
thank you.
Richards, yes, was yeah, and yes, Richards was a Ring of Honor World Champion, but he did not hold this belt, so he is not going to be on this list. So he holds it for a few months. I forget exactly how long he had it for. I think I can possibly tell you here. But he had some matches with AJ Styles. I think was his first defense. And let's see, where is the list? Oh, they don't. Do they have it? Here we go. No. Anyway, so he held it for a while. Unscripted, the first unscripted show that ROH put on. Let me get this picture down. Uh, it's one of those where they would do this every now and then if there were a bunch of like if there was bad weather, they would have to cancel flights and change things around. They would just change it to unscripted would be the name of the show, and they would just kind of fly by the seat of their pants a little bit. And on the first unscripted show, he actually lost the title to Xavier. There he is there.
Xavier.
This guy was a stud, man. Rest in
Yeah,
peace. He's not with us anymore. But
yeah.
at the time, he was a member of the Prophecy, which was not Daniels's group, trying to destroy Ring of Honor and the Code of Honor. It was just good old-fashioned heel work, you know. But I think Mark Briscoe was in the group for a bit, Donovan Morgan from the West Coast, Allison Danger. In the original iteration, later on, there was like Moff and Whitmer and guys like that. But Xavier held it for a while. He held it through the end of '02 into '03. And then in March of '03, he would drop it to Joe. There you see him there.
Joe. Yeah,
Bad man. As
yeah.
as good as he is now, Joe back in '04, '05 was just a friggin' monster.
Exactly. And I actually didn't like this version of Joe, this early version of Joe. I thought he was a wannabe Samoan with his butt beads around his neck.
I didn't want to say it. Yet the necklace looks like anal beads. I'm not going to tell him that, but
No, I'm not going to tell him that. No, but yeah, definitely was not a fan of him at this time. It took about 6-7 years for Joe to grow on me. I
uh-huh,
always knew that he was a great athlete and he put on good matches. I just didn't. Yeah, I just wasn't a fan of him.
right. I actually didn't really. I would see his name in the magazines because I didn't watch Ring of Honor when it first started. I didn't get the DVDs. I was
Same.
living down here in the sticks. I didn't get to go to the shows or anything. But
Exactly.
when he showed up in TNA in '05, that's when I really got. It's the first time I got to see him, and he was having those X Division matches with Daniels and Styles and Chris Sabin and all those, having his X Division run. And then after that, I had moved up to Aurora, and a friend of mine, I gave him some money. I was like, hey, get me some ROH DVDs next time you go to a show, because they would go Chicago Ridge in the suburbs. So my friend was going. He used to go to all the shows, so he brought me back about 4 or 5 DVDs, and one of them was the last match he had with Punk, uh, the third one that
Hmm.
didn't go to the draw. So, and watching that whole show, and the entire show was great. It had Low Key against Aries was a match on there. Danielson against Homicide, uh, and then Havana Pitbulls. I forget who they were wrestling. It was a tag match. And then there was a match between Cabana and Jacobs against Generation Next. It was a stacked card for sure. But the main event was Joe and Punk, and they went about 45 minutes, and Joe got the pin. But it as good as I thought Joe was in TNA, I thought he was just that much better in Ring of Honor because it's like he didn't quite have the shackles on him, and which is a thing you hear
Exactly.
a lot about the indies. You know, they can kind of be themselves a little bit. And yeah, I know I remember Christian in TNA saying something to Joe about when he first heard his name, he thought he was going to be peeling bananas with his feet or something like that. Made a really bad crack about being Samoan. I'm like, oh my God. And little did I know where Christian would go with his promos nowadays, back in 2007. But yeah, Joe was he kind of went away from the mold for Samoan wrestlers. He wore the traditional gear. He wore shoes. You know, he wore boots. A lot of the Samoans would go barefoot. I almost said footless,
Exactly.
but
Footless. Well, all
uh,
right then.
yeah. But then he had the judo, BJJ, like MMA based of offense, which was different. And yes, I know I'm talking about Joe. Noodles is being a bit of a pain right now. She's like, talk about Joe. But yeah, so Joe holds the belt for 21 months. Uh, and believe it or not, because I've talked to friends that watched the product for years. Even though he held the belt for damn near 2 years, people were shocked when he lost the belt, and he dropped it at Final Battle '04, a month after the match that I saw with him and Punk. And there you go, dropped it to Austin Aries. Uh, one of our favorite guys to talk about, Bari.
Mr. Man himself, Mr. Going to Visits himself.
Uh-huh. It's what do we always say, Bari? The good thing about Austin Aries is he's Austin Aries, but the bad thing about Austin Aries is he's Austin
He's all
Aries. But damn, is he a good athlete?
yes, he
He's
is.
such a good wrestler. Uh, just a little little shit, but man, he's like a pound of dynamite. He hit hard, he could fly, he could strike, he could wrestle, he could do the hold for hold stuff just as good as anybody.
Yeah.
Uh, I think an Eddie Sharkey guy. I think Sharkey trained him. But
Oh, okay.
yeah, the Aries was one of the upper echelon heels in the company. He was the leader of Generation Next, which was one of my favorite factions. Him and well, originally it was Alex Shelley, Aries, Roderick Strong, Jack Evans. But by this point, Shelley got kicked out of the group. Aries took the leadership role over. Then they got Matt Sydal, and they had another year run as a unit. But Aries was defended against everybody. He had some great matches with Danielson, with I'm trying to think who Jack Ev or sorry Alex Shelley when he came back in the first part of '05, and yeah, he held the belt for about 6 months. And compared to Joe, that doesn't sound like a long time, but he was a fighting champion. He would take the belt to Japan, and
Right, exactly.
yeah,
And the fact that he did
it should
business that long too says something.
yeah right. Uh, oh, it should be noted that Joe's the one that technically made it a world title by taking it overseas for the first time. So I want to make sure that got thrown up there. So yeah, Aries defends it through the first half of '05, and about I think it was June, I forget the exact date. Uh, everybody's favorite dissonant character, CM Punk.
Mr.
It was
Second,
supposed to be
second
his. That's right. He was supposed to be out. He was supposed to be leaving the company that night. That was supposed to be his last match, and he beat Aries for the belt. And then he cut the original pipe bomb and used a lot of the same verbiage he used in the pipe bomb in 2011. If you think about it, basically just turned heel and and wound up staying until he dropped the belt. Which credit to him for that. He could have easily just left the belt with Kerry and uh, headed off. But he did some great heel work when he was champion because I don't know if you remember this. He signed his WWE contract on the belt in the ring in Ring of Honor at one of their shows.
Yeah, yeah, he did.
Then all the baby faces were trying to beat him before he went to WWE and reported to OVW in like August. So he had a couple months with that with the belt where he was kind of holding it over their head. It's like I'm gonna leave and I'm gonna drop this belt on Vince's desk. That old chestnut. That the remember the Dudleys saying that back in ECW also. But uh but he had some good matches. Roderick Strong, Lethal, Daniels, and then on August the 12th, I remember that this date because it was the night before he actually left. He was in a four-way defense against Joe, uh, Daniels, and James Gibson, and that's the night when Gibson won the championship. And the night after that, Punk went to WWE, so he had his last match with Cabana, then he was gone. And
Yep.
Gibson, unfortunately, I think right around the same time, he got his notice that he was going too. So, so congratulations, you won the world title. Hey, that's great. Oh, by the way, I'm going back to WWE in about 2 months. So,
Yeah, about that. I got a call back.
yeah.
I gotta go.
Uh, and he was actually in the '05 TPI for IWA after he had already signed with WWE, but it was like they were letting him fulfill his commitments on the Indies. So, and he showed up and he was healing on Josh Abercrombie, if you remember that guy, the guy with the mustache. Basically, he was introduced as James Gibson, but he made the ring announcer call him Jamie Noble. Just good heat, you know. But yeah, so Gibson holds it for about a month and 5 days, according to my research. And then finally, after 3 years of patiently waiting, there you go. Brian Danielson finally got the world championship.
It was his
Uh,
time.
it was his time. Uh, to be fair, he spent a lot of time in Japan between '02 and '05, so he wasn't there
Very
full time until about late '04. But man, the run he had, he was the champ when I first started watching Ring of Honor in '05, '06. And even though I love my house fights and everything, but some of my favorite title matches were during this run. Uh, the matches he had with, well, he had a cage match with Joe. He wrestled Nigel, I don't know how many times
true. Exactly.
across the world in England. They had a killer match in England. It was to unify the world title with the pure title, and that's the one. I don't know if you've ever seen the video when Nigel's taking the headshots to the post. I don't know if you ever, it busted him open. It was brutal. I that match watching it gives me a headache.
That's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah. During this run, Danielson fought some of everybody.
Hmm.
You named Joe, and you just talked about the match he had overseas. He even had a match with Kamala for the
Yeah.
ROH
I saw that on YouTube this week. Oh, Kamala.
Yeah,
But
he definitely fought some of everybody.
oh yeah.
And can work with just about anybody too with his style.
Yeah. I love the story that they told where he had sent contracts to every promoter in like around the world, finger quotes, but like that's how he got a match with Lance Storm in Chicago. Lance Storm came out of retirement and wrestled him at a Ring of Honor show. That's how Hero got a title shot when he was technically still with CZW. He wasn't with Ring of Honor at the time. And that one, and we're gonna get to our favorite matches. That one, I guarantee, is on my list of favorite matches. And then he had the feud with the Embassy, Shelly and Jimmy Rave and Nana going around. I think that's when the Kamala match happened, and then eventually turned heel, started going with Homicide, and they did some really good business in 2006.
Yeah.
Just they kept trying. This is back when Cornette was the evil commissioner of Ring of Honor, and he kept trying to throw obstacles at Homicide because he didn't like him because Loki kicked his teeth out. So, so it was Cornette, Deputy Commissioner Adam Pierce. There's a name for you. And they just kept messing with Homicide, trying to keep him away from the world title. It wasn't necessarily to protect Danielson. They just didn't want Homicide to be the champion. And then after Homicide beat Steve Corino in a fight without honor, then he finally got his shot at Final Battle '06. And predictably, there you see, Homicide got the belt. I think this picture
Homicide.
might be. I think this picture is from the night that he wrestled Joe that you were talking about that you saw on YouTube, Bari. Because the shirt looks familiar.
Yeah, that shirt looks familiar. Exactly.
Yeah. And yeah, so Homicide wins it in December. He's another one that didn't hold it very long, Bari. He held it for a couple months. Uh, in the early part of '07, the Brass and TNA kind of got a wild hair up their butt and decided they didn't want their talent working indies. So Joe, Homicide, Aries, Daniels, AJ, they all pretty much just had to stop working Ring of Honor and just stick with TNA. So then Homicide wound up dropping the title so he could go and do because LAX was a hot act in TNA. He'd be a fool to give that up. And so in during the fifth year festival was a bunch of shows celebrating their fifth anniversary in February of '07. Uh, there's this guy, and this guy is one of my favorites, Bari Takeshi
Yeah,
Morishima.
brick shit house.
Oh my God.
My goodness, he's another one that I would not want to run into a dark alley. No, thank
You
you.
know, first night of the fifth year festival, Morishima lost a match to Joe. And you want a hoss fight? That was a damn hoss fight.
My goodness, they beat the piss out of each other.
Oh, they really did. I remember when they had a brawl during one of the shows in like fall of '05. It was like I think it was the night Bruno was there. Sammartino was giving a speech in the ring, and all the talent was like around the ring, paying respect. And as everybody was walking back through the ramp, Joe and Morishima got into it and wound up having just a knockdown, drag out this fight in the aisle. It took like the entire roster to break it up, and then they held off on that for about 5 months. So they waited. They could have easily said, "Hey, the next show we're gonna have these two go one on one." No, they were smart. They
Exactly.
waited. They let it
Yeah.
burn a little bit.
Let it burn,
And
let it boil, let it marinate.
yes, and yeah. So Joe beat Morishima the first night. The second night of the fifth year festival is the night that Morishima beat Homicide, and decisively. He dominated in that match, which you didn't get a lot of squash matches in Ring of Honor, especially in title matches.
Right.
But in this case, they were building Morishima to be something special, and man, he was. And then he would defend the belt in Noah because he was a Pro Wrestling Noah guy. So that was his main promotion. He would defend the title over there, then he would come back and do like the pay-per-views. I think he beat Adam Pearce. Had a bunch of matches with Danielson that were crazy good. I think he broke Danielson's orbital bone in a match, if I remember right,
Sounds about right. Yeah.
because because Danielson missed the pay-per-view and then he had an eye patch at one point, and I think it was from Wrestle Morishima. Uh, he held it for about I want to say 8 months or so. I think he dropped it in October at the undeniable pay-per-view. He wound up losing the title to our favorite
Nigel.
porcupine, Nigel McGuinness. The people that watch Collision or watched NXT that only know Nigel McGuinness as a commentator, they missed out on
Yeah.
seeing this guy in the ring. I mean, good Lord, he had a lariat that Hanson would be proud of,
Exactly.
and he would do that European strong style with the headbutts and he'd take a cheap shot or two, and then he could do the submissions. He was a very well-rounded uh, athlete, and the matches he had with Danielson in '06, I think, kind of primed him for the run that he had as the world champion because he held the title for I'll say 18 months, give or take, about a year and a half, uh, through the entirety of 2008 and then half of '09 plus the run in '07. And he beat everybody, and he was falling apart. I don't know if you remember this, Bari. At one point, both of his biceps were torn, and he was still
Oh,
working. He's working through it. He
jeez.
had concussions. He was just a mess. But he would go out there and he would defend his belt every night.
It was mechanical.
Yeah. I mean, credit for that in one way, but then also were you a friggin' idiot the other way. Uh,
Exactly.
but yeah, he had, and I feel bad for Nigel. He used to get shit from the audience. They would say same old shit, that kind of stuff, because he didn't change his style. They didn't say that shit to Danielson. Danielson did
Exactly.
a lot of the same stuff too. But maybe it was
Exactly.
just because Nigel was the heel. Maybe because he was the foreign heel. They were. I was watching a match he had when he was defending against Danielson, and the fans were chanting USA at him, which I thought he's lived in the USA for about 15 years at that point. It seems. I think
Exactly. He's
because he trained
American.
because he trained
Fickle
with
and
Thatcher. He went to
right. Yeah.
Cincinnati. He trained with Les Thatcher.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, fans are fickle.
Fickle, yes. I wish I had a soundbite of Danielson saying "fickle" when he was the Planet's champion. Uh, Little side note: I got to meet Nigel at the '07 TPI. I did
Oh,
Prince of a guy, very nice. I bought the T-shirt. Doesn't fit me anymore. I don't know where it is, but no, he wrestled Claudio that night in the tournament, and just good old-fashioned European masterpiece. Good stuff. They were throwing uppercuts. Nigel wound up taking the L on that one, and then the next night it was a two-night tournament. And the next night, he and BJ Whitmer challenged the Iron Saints, the Tomaselli brothers. I don't know if you remember them or not, Bari, for the tag titles over there. And I only say that because I want to get a cheap plug in on the next episode of the Jumping the Rail podcast. We're going to have Paulie Tomaselli joining us, who's the younger brother of Vito Tomaselli of the Iron Saints. So I just wanted to make sure we throw that out there, give it a cheap plug in. Uh, but yeah, Nigel, it got to the point we talk about some of these champions. In my case, I talk about Camille, the former NWA Women's Champion. When it got to the point where it wasn't who's next, it's who's left.
who's left? Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where it wound up getting with Nigel as the champion at this point because he held it for so long. And then finally in trying to think what month it was. Give me a second to Google. And but he wound up losing the belt in the summer of '09 to Jerry Lynn. Let's see. And it was actually a really well done angle because they were playing up on the depression and history that Jerry had in his family, and he was having like problems with his family, like seeing his kids or all that kind of stuff. So Nigel went there in his promos to the point where it got almost uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. April 3rd, '09. So it was the Supercard of Honor WrestleMania weekend that year. Jerry beat Nigel. Uh, Another guy. He only held it for a couple months. I don't think they were planning on using Jerry for that long. I think he was, he was a veteran at this point. So I think it was. I hate to use the term. It almost seemed like a transitional champion. He held it for
Transitional. Yeah.
He held the belt for 71 days,
Yeah.
and
Definitely
yeah. And actually, I got the picture. Here we go. There's Jerry. He was a veteran. He never changed his. He never looked different from 1997 to 2010. And obviously, he's retired now. Had neck problems, so he had to step away. But I mean, if you're going to pick somebody to be a transitional champion, he's the guy because
exactly.
Jerry Lynn is very good at professional wrestling.
Very
He
good at
wound.
professional wrestling. He brought credibility to the belt. So
Yes, yes. If my math is right, he's the first person to hold both the ECW, original ECW, and Ring of Honor Heavyweight Championship. He's technically Punk did, but it was WWE ECW. So, well, nitpick if you must. But, let's see. So Jerry held the belt from April 3rd to June 13th. And then we have a little history here, Bari, because look at that shady character.
look at that son of a bitch right
A
there.
double Austin Aries, looking as heely as a heel can look, became the first ever two-time Ring of Honor heavyweight champion. And
Plant-based bastard.
the facial hair is off-putting.
Very off-putting.
It's like he's gonna go tie Kerry Silken to the railroad tracks if he doesn't get his way. But Aries had a good run the second time. His first run was about 175 days, 174 to be exact. His second run was 245 days, so he got a lot more time with it this time around. And he was the champion in kind of a sketchy time because this is the time that Danielson left and McGuinness left. So it really kind of threw a little monkey wrench into the World Championship picture in Ring of Honor because two of their main guys were gone.
exactly.
And then Hero, who was one of the guys that was one of the top singles guys, reformed the Kings of Wrestling with Claudio at this point. So both those guys were out of the title picture. Uh, Steen and Generico were a tag team still. This is right before Steen turned on Generico, so that kind of helped a little bit. But yeah, so Aries was kind of the Rock, not Dwayne Johnson, but he was the Rock in Ring of Honor. They always called him the Ace. He was like there was always the speculation was Danielson or Aries the Ace of Ring of Honor, and it wound up. I think they pretty much settled on the fact that they considered Aries to be that guy. So he was their guy
Right.
for a long time. And then at the time now to do math at the eighth anniversary show, I had to make sure I had the right year. Uh, Aries dropped the belt to this guy. Look at that, Tyler Black.
Who's that feller?
You might know him better as Seth Rollins, who'll always be Tyler Black to me.
exactly.
And Tyler, and I'm going to call him Tyler because that's what his gimmick was in Ring of Honor at the time. He had a bunch of false starts with that title. He had really good matches with Nigel and with Jerry Lynn and then with Aries, but he never won. And it got to the point where I think the fans were starting to kind of give up on it. You know what I mean? It's like why are they giving this guy another shot kind of a thing.
Exactly.
And then they finally, I think they did the whole "this is your last opportunity" angle before the match with Aries. and he wound up winning the belt. And he was the guy that retired the belt. They went to that eagle kind of design that they had
Yeah,
for a
they
few
did.
years.
Yeah, yeah.
They they retooled that belt and the tag titles at the same time, kind of made them both very similar. And so yeah, for about 12 years, well, about 10 years, they nobody did anything with this belt except for when Daniels beat Cody, or I'm sorry, Adam Cole for the belt. And he won the regulation title that they were using, but then they also presented him with that original belt when
Hmm.
when he won. That's kind of a feel good moment, because Daniels was in that original heavyweight championship match. So it was kind of it was a cool moment. But he never he
Exactly.
but after that night he never brought it back out. It was just for the camp photo ops, I guess.
He took it
Uh
home and put it on his mantle.
yeah. So fast forward from then to about it was Final Battle 2021, not the 21st Final Battle. Uh it was supposed to be Jonathan Gresham against Bandito for the heavyweight championship. Bandito was the champion. Gresham had a stranglehold on the pure title and had a long run with the tag titles in the build up to this. But after COVID, everything kind of, you know, everybody knows everything was up in the air. Nobody knew what to do, what was going on. And Ring of Honor announced that they were going to be going on hiatus after Final Battle 2021. And then Bandito was stuck in Mexico. Uh, I forget if he had COVID or if he was just sheltering in place in Mexico and couldn't get out of the country. So they decided that the main event was going to be changed to Lethal taking Bandito's spot against Gresham for the vacant championship. And if you Tony Khan, you would say it's an interim championship. Thanks, guys. But
Right.
I watched that match, Lethal and Gresham, and it was just great. I mean, if you like the pure technical style, Gresham is your guy. That's not necessarily my thing for the most part. There's some exceptions, Zack Sabre Jr. being one of them. But Lethal, I mean, I've been on the record on every show we do. Jay Lethal, for my money, is one of the top 4 or 5 best wrestlers in the world,
And I agree.
regardless, regardless of uh, questionable booking that they might put him through. You know,
Yeah, and said entourage, but
yeah, full the entourage. But anyway, so they had a great match. Gresham got the win, and then Gresham was presented with the original championship. There you see him there. So while he was defending this belt all over the country during the Ring of Honor hiatus, he defended it in GCW and in his Terminus promotion in Georgia. I know he wrestled Joey O'Reilly in 01. I don't think it was for the title though. I don't remember if he had the belt for that show or not.
no, he didn't.
Okay, maybe that's one of the ones I missed. But so he held the belt for a while, and then Bandito was carrying the original belt that he had in Mexico and defending it all over the place. So they wound up having their unification match, and Gresham got the win, and then he wound up retiring Bandito's belt and just kept going with the original belt here. And then he wound up losing. I forget what pay-per-view it was. Might have been Death Before Dishonor. I can't remember for sure. Uh, there you see him,
Claudio. Yeah.
Claudio. Long overdue, I thought, when he beat Gresham for the title, just from his original Ring of Honor run. And man, again, questionable booking strategies with Claudio with the BCC and all that stuff for Tony. But good God, what an athlete!
Exactly.
What
A
can't what
freak,
can't he do?
a freak of nature.
He is a freak of nature in the best possible way.
Exactly.
So Claudio basically is the first AEW era Ring of Honor World Heavyweight Champion. Uh, he makes a few defenses. Then guess who pops his head up, Bari, because he sees something that's working. He's like, I gotta get in on this.
Some bitch. The Ocho. He had
The
become the
Ocho.
Ocho.
Hmm. But they were gonna put the AEW belt on him. No. But no,
Yeah,
he and
take this and run with it for 8 weeks.
yeah, and he won it on Dynamite. I There's something weird about Ring of Honor titles changing hands on AEW. I know Tony owns both of them, but still. But you know what? You can say what you want. Jericho put a little credibility on that title though, because it is Chris Jericho. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
say what you want about what he's doing in AEW, but I mean, he is Jericho, and he's got a lot of respect from a lot of people. He's kind of in
Yeah, he does.
That Jerry Lynn spot. You know what I mean? Get the belt on the veteran. Held the belt for a good while until was it Final Battle this past year when Claudio won it back. I think that's what it was.
One of them.
Yeah, they don't have very many pay-per-views in Ring of Honor, so you got like four chances to be right. But yeah, so Claudio wins the belt back from Jericho, and I'll just throw the picture back up again. Hey, there you go. So happy he is. Uh, and he held the championship up until about 2 weeks ago at Grand Slam, but at Supercard of Honor in March, WrestleMania weekend, he debuted the new belt, the new Ring of Honor title, and retired the original. So he was technically the last person to hold that original Ring of Honor championship. And I don't know where the belt resides nowadays. I couldn't figure that out. I'm going to assume Claudio still has it. Maybe Kerry Silkin got to keep it. I don't know.
Who knows? Yeah.
Yeah. So a little bit of a longer list than I thought it was going to be of the champions. Like I said, it was not a lot of repeat business like we do on a lot of our episodes when we're going through the title histories. But like we said, man, it's a who's who of wrestling in this list.
It really is.
Yeah, and no disrespect to PWG or CZW or all the other indies at the time that were running in the 2000s, 2010s, but Ring of Honor was a cut above all of them. It was such a good territory. The wrestling was good. The characters were good. I really liked most of the characters in there. There weren't a lot that I couldn't take. You know, well, Young Bucks, but you know. But I digress. We'll try to keep the AEW bashing to a minimum on this episode. Uh, but yeah, so there's our list of champions past. As far as notable feuds go, Bari, I've got a list of five, and I'm inclined to think we probably have some double ups on here between the two of us. Uh,
More than likely.
yeah. Uh, First one on my list, Joe and Homicide. It was when Homicide was the heel, and the Rottweilers were a thing. It was him, Loki, the Pit Bulls, and they would just torment Joe on a monthly basis in Ring of Honor.
Yeah.
I think Homicide stole the belt at one point. I think they were going to present Joe with a new belt in '04, and it might be storyline. I'm not sure, but they had the new belt there, and Homicide wound up stealing the new belt, and nobody ever saw it again. So they wound up just keeping the. I think it was the first Joe Punk match when that happened. But
Yeah, no, yeah. I think I just watched that, and yeah, yeah. Well, I've seen the beginning of it. I didn't get to watch the entire match, but yeah, I believe
right,
so. Because
yeah,
in the beginning of that match, they were presenting Joe with a new belt.
yeah, and that would have been a. I'm very curious what that belt looked like because
Exactly.
you didn't get a good look at it. But
No,
this would be a very different episode if that had actually stuck.
exactly.
It would be three champions long and it'd be a much shorter episode.
Yeah.
But no, and not only during Joe's run with the belt, then when Homicide was champion, you talked about the match on YouTube that we both watched. It was Homicide and Joe, I think from January of '07, if my math is right.
That sounds right.
Yeah. Number two on my list, speaking of Joe, the matches with Punk. It's very different because the feud with Homicide was a blood feud. It was grudges. It was personal. The match with Punk were just purely for competition. It seems like
Yeah.
it was like who's the best kind of thing. And 2 hour draws, and then one that goes 45 minutes. And I said it before, they could have done this 3 months in a row. They could have done here's the match. Oh, they had a draw. Next month we're doing the rematch. They spaced it out over what 5 months,
Yeah.
and and they made the fans wait for it. And fans, it's okay for fans to wait for things. You
Yeah,
know what I
no,
mean?
right. You didn't have to start something one week and then blow it off 5 days later. You don't have to do that.
No. And but yeah, and the thing I liked about the matches Joe had with Punk, every like the first match, it was one story. It was Punk trying to win with the headlock. He said he said that was his strategy because on the DVD I had, they before the third match, he and I think it was Gabe like did like a video recap of the first two matches, like with their commentary on it. And Punk said that specifically, like I based that first match around one move, and it was the headlock, which is great philosophy, great storytelling. Just and then the next match, it was a different strategy. Like he still was doing the headlock, but he also was countering the counters that Joe had for him. It's kind of like similar to the Van Dam Jerry Lynn feud in ECW. Every match,
Yeah.
like they would take that bare bones formula they had, but then they would just add new things to it, and it would progress. And that's kind of that's how I feel about the Joe Punk stuff. It was just great, and it is kind of nice that Punk's last match, well, that we know of, was against Joe. That's when
Right.
he finished up with. Thanks,
How
guys.
very fitting.
Very fitting and a good match. You know, even if Punk didn't necessarily want to have it after what happened, but we're not going to talk about that.
No.
No. Uh, all right. So Danielson and Homicide, we kind of talked about this a little bit when we talked about Danielson's run. Again, personal feud. They did a great job of telling Homicide's story, struggling, like trying to come up and railing against the authority and all that good stuff, you know. And also a styles clash too. You know, you got the Street Fighter and Homicide, and you got the technical guy in Danielson,
And then, yeah.
and then but they both were able to kind of adapt to each other's styles during their matches, which was good. And yeah, so fourth one I got you gotta have Danielson McGuinness on here. Uh, again, they had more matches than I can count. McGuinness didn't win. Danielson won most of the time, except until McGuinness won the belt. But yeah, it was just such a great matchup. It was probably the most even matchup that Danielson had style wise as world champion. Like
Exactly.
as so. And then the last one I got Austin Aries and Tyler Black from late '09 through 2010. Just Black just kept trying, couldn't quite get there. You know, just the struggle. That's what I always say, man. I'd rather see the babyface chase the heel with the
Chase the heel.
championship.
Exactly. It's more of a story in that right there. More
Yeah,
of a story.
and that's what happened with Tyler, and he got the win. And I think that was no, Aries wasn't done after that. He became the greatest manager that ever lived and was managing the All Night Express for a bit before he left and went to TNA. But uh, but no, it was good, a great way to build Black because he'd been the tag team guy. He was the Age of the Fall guy for a long time.
Yep.
And then once he turned babyface, they just strapped a rocket to him and really made him. Uh, am I missing any there, Bari, that you got that I didn't have?
No, I got pretty much the same list that you got. Yeah, Joe Homicide, Punk Joe, Aries Black. Yeah, same list. Yeah,
Aries Black is a great name for a wrestler, by the way.
that is. That really is.
Yeah, maybe if I become a manager, I'll be Aries Black.
There you go.
There we go. All right. So I've kind of done away with the greatest matches list the last couple episodes, and I'm sticking with that. I think favorite matches is a better, more subjective category.
Yeah.
So we're gonna do that, and I think I might have a couple that you don't have, Bari, on this one.
Okay.
All right. First one, Low Key versus AJ Styles from the Honor Invades Boston show in 2002. It was Low
Dude.
Key's it was Key's first defense after he won the
Yeah.
title,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and and they were doing the X Division stuff in TNA by this point, so they were very familiar with each other. I'm sure they were
Yeah.
anyway, because I
Couple
don't
of
know how many
young
times they
bulls.
wrestled.
Yeah.
Yes, Key got the win, but AJ was, you know, 2002 AJ was great. Uh, I don't know how like the old school guys would feel about young AJ now compared to AJ how he is in the ring these days. Because he was doing a lot of the high spots, a lot of the flip doos. But number one, he made it look good, and
Right.
he rarely missed. Like he didn't mess up a lot. He was like just very crisp.
Exactly.
Yeah. I kind of cheated, Bari. I admit. I just put the entire Joe Punk trilogy on one because I can't pick between the three.
And and that's fine. That's fine. They were all great matches.
If I had to pick, I'd probably pick the second match, the one for Chicago, if given my if I was really pushed. But the trilogy itself was the story, as we talked about. Uh, I think maybe my favorite one on this list, Danielson versus Chris Hero. Hell Freezes Over 2006. It was. I don't know how much you saw of the feud Ring of Honor with CZW in '06, Bari.
I
It
don't
was like,
remember much of it. I do recall it, but I don't remember watching much of it.
well, this was basically the start of it because Hero came through he came in through the front door. He didn't change in the locker room because I think they had it where I think Danielson showed up at because the show was in Philly. The Ring of Honor show was in Philly, which is their home base. But CZW ran like an afternoon show earlier in the day, and Danielson had gone there and I think was talking shit to the CZW fans about he's a wrestler, they're garbage, all that kind of the old chestnuts about the hardcore wrestling. And I guess Hero had taken exception to it, and I remember seeing this on video. This was on YouTube. I might have to see if it's still there. But it was Danielson talking shit to Hero. They wind up getting into it in the ring. Then McGinnis, Aries, and Strong all do a run in. So this is all the guys that are holding the championships in Ring of Honor, and they go after Hero. And then the locker room empties. You know how it goes when the invaders show up. Good stuff. Except for the commentary. The guys doing commentary are so annoying in CZW. Maybe it's just me. But uh, but anyway, so then Hero wound up accepting Danielson's open contract that we talked about earlier, and he showed up with Nate Webb, Necro Butcher, and Adam Flash, like from CZW, like his entourage. Like they weren't a faction. It was just he just brought backup in case something went down. So these guys were all at ringside. Danielson and Hero had a fantastic match. Uh, they they told us Gabe Sapolsky wasn't doing commentary at the time. He was like he would pop in and say something every now and then to like pay the bills or whatever. But they basically at the start of the match he said, "Hey, if we've told the referee if any of these CCW guys get involved, just disqualify Hero." Like, and it seemed like they were trying to stack the deck against Hero a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, it wound up being a straight up match. Danielson got the win, but that set the table for that when CZW wound up coming in for like the 100th show. They uh, beat up on everybody. They spray painted the ring, all the good stuff. And then the blow off was the Cage of Death at Death Before Dishonor '06. And that's one. And I'm not a fan of the Cage of Death matches in CCW because they get a little crazy with the panes of glass and all the extra plunder and everything. This almost seemed like a War Games match. It had the weapons and it had the blood, as you would expect with a CCW show or a match, but it had the feel of like a Crockett match from the mid '80s, like with because they had mystery partners and Danielson turned on Joe in the match because he was the heel and Joe was the number one contender, like for a future show. So Danielson turned on Joe and walked out and left the Ring of Honor guys like 4 against 5.
Mm.
So just good stuff. If it's on Facebook, if it's on YouTube, I'm gonna find it. I'm gonna put it on the Facebooks for the network, just so you can see. It's a long one though, just to warn you. But that's neither here nor there. Uh, then I got a couple more SEMA matches on my list, Bari. I feel like I'm rambling, but you know how it
No,
is.
you're fine.
Battle of St. Paul in April of '07. This was the show before Cabana's last show in Chicago. Morishima defended the title against Aries in a really good match. Uh, again, they're building Morishima to be this unstoppable monster, but they were throwing credible challengers at him, and he wasn't squashing them. He
Right.
was, it's but yeah, I mean, Aries could have a good match with anybody. Morishima, he did business. He was the heel, but he wasn't like an asshole heel. He just wanted to beat people up. That kind of a thing.
Just a
Except for
bad.
Danielson. He was an asshole to Danielson, but that was about it. Broke his orbital and cheap shot him and all that stuff.
They may right. They right. That may have been some personal animosity then.
Yeah. Then the last match I've got it was from the night after. It was at the Chicago show, the Cabanas last night. It was Morishima against
Ooh,
Shingo Takagi. But it was when Shingo was a Dragon Gate guy. So they were making a big deal about being Noah versus Dragon Gate. So
right.
and it was good. You could tell Morishima liked working with Shingo because he was giving him a lot in that match. He even took his finish, but of course didn't get beat by the finish. That would be, I mean, foolish. but but no, it was a good match. About 10, 15 minutes probably. Morishima won. His finish was that backdrop driver, that Saito suplex that just looked sick. It looked like he was dropping people on their
Sickening.
heads. But
Yeah.
if you go back and watch it, it looks safe. It was safer than Phoenix's Michinoku driver that he did concuss Moxley, that's for sure. It was dope.
Let's do it again.
Yeah. Because Moxley's an idiot. But that's neither here nor there. All right, so that's my five, Bari. What do you got for favorite matches?
My favorite match, I got to go with the Punk Joe trilogy,
Okay.
because why not? Go with Joe and Homicide, and then another hidden gem that we were talking about earlier before we started the podcast. It was a three way dance with DB, Joe, and Kenta. Now the title wasn't on the line, but Brian Danielson was the champion. So
Okay.
I can get away with adding it to the list.
He wore the belt to the ring. I allow it.
Exactly. So yeah, those are my three. And the honorable mention, American Dragon and Styles. That was a hell of a match.
Oh,
Anytime
nice.
those two got in the ring together, they
Yeah.
always tore it up.
Okay. Well, if we're throwing out honorable mentions, I'm going to throw out the match when McGuinness beat Morishima at Undeniable in '07.
Okay, okay, I'll allow it.
Yeah. Uh, like I said, so good. And that was another one of those where McGuinness was struggling. He was chasing Morishima for a few months,
Hmm.
and then he finally got his. So all right. So that's our favorite matches. Our As far as top five champions, we got plenty to choose from off this list, Bari. But if I had to make a definitive top five for to hold the belt, I think I've got to go I'll go 5-1. I'll just let the I'm gonna build the suspense a little bit, although it's probably predictable. Number five, I got Morishima. He was the first like technically non Ring of Honor talent to hold the belt, but he would still make the time for the big shows and everything. Number four, I've got Austin Aries, just for the fact that he was the first two-time champ. Number three, McGuinness. Number two, Danielson. Number one, Joe. Just
Very
for
nice.
length of reigns with the
Very
belt.
nice. Very nice. My list goes number one, Brian Danielson. Number two, Samoa Joe. Number three, Morishima. Number four, Punk. And number five, Austin.
Okay. Yeah, I was on the fence about putting Punk on there. I mean, he only held the belt for a couple months. That's the only reason he didn't make it on. But like I said, the stuff he was doing with the belt was gold. When he signed his contract on it, you would have thought that the fans were going to kill him.
Exactly.
He had Shane Hagedorn holding the belt while he has his contract out. Oh my God, Punk is. You can say what you want about Punk. He was a friggin' genius when it comes to getting heat.
Yeah, he was.
So, all right. Well, Bari, since I picked this episode, I think you get to pick the next one. So what's it gonna be? Oh, I see. I
uh,
know that look.
We're gonna go a little off kilter, and we're gonna do a fairly easy one, a very fun one, obviously too. We're gonna do the WCW Hardcore Championship.
Ooh, interesting. That's one I'll have to do some homework on because I
Yeah.
kind of stopped watching WCW by the time that belt came around.
Oh yeah, you're gonna. I'm gonna send you a list of matches. You're gonna be like, oh my god.
Please do. So yeah, we'll do some digging on that. That should be interesting. I will say this though, I liked their hardcore title belt better than the WWF one.
Exactly. It was an actual championship. It wasn't something that was mashed
Yeah,
and bashed together.
it wasn't as gimmicky as the WWF hardcore title.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. All right, so I am down for that. We will definitely do that one in the next episode. Whether it's in 2 weeks or another month, we'll have to wait and see. But uh, but no, we will definitely do that one. Actually, let me make a note of that so I don't forget. Uh, W. Why am I trying to spell WCW in my head? Been a long day. All right, so I got that in my notes. I will not forget. There we go. All right. So before we get out of here, Bari, and we're starting to get this down. We're just over an hour. We're killing this right
Yeah.
now.
We're getting
All
good
right,
at
so let's
this.
pay a yes. So before we go, let's pay some bills here. ProWrestlingTees.com/JTR pod for our parent show, the Jumping the Rail podcast. Which, if you didn't listen to this week's episode, I definitely recommend it. We had the great Justin Credible in with us, talking about his career. It was a lot of fun. There you see some of the shirts that we got for Jumping the Rail. Also, our 01 Shootout, where we talk about all things 01 USA here in Central Illinois. And then brainbustertees.com/other/JTR-podcast-network. You get more stuff for both of those shows. Plus, we get our official Gold Rush T-shirt. We call them belts down there because we do.
We call them belts.
Yes. We need to think of some more designs, Barry, because it's I feel bad we only have the one. We need to have some more. But
Yeah. I'll
yeah.
get on that.
Yeah. Uh, so yeah, on Brainbuster you can get T-shirts, hoodies, sweatshirts, baseball shirts, fanny packs, caps, stocking caps, all that stuff. And then we broke this on JTR Tuesday. New to Brainbuster tees. I don't know if you saw this, Barry. We got a couple
Yeah, I
zip-up
seen
hoodies
those.
now. We
Yeah,
got one
yeah.
for jumping the rail, one for the shootout, and I will work on getting one for Gold Rush also. I don't know. Bar, you see the little logo in the top corner here on the screen?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I do. I
It's,
like that.
do you think that would work on a t-shirt? Because we can make it happen.
Yeah, I like it.
All right, we'll do it then. I'll get cracking on there. Uh, next next week on the 01 Shootout, we will be joined by the Jet Benjamin Trust, the flying man of St. Louis. Uh,
The water thrower himself.
yeah, hey, he gave you a towel though. He was
He
nice.
did. He did. He
And
did.
not only that, he did it in a way that made it seem like he was still a heel because he threw it at you.
Yeah,
That's so very savvy there. So credit to him for that.
exactly. I respect
And
that.
then yes, and then, like I said, week from Tuesday we'll have Polly Tomaselli on the Jumping the Rail podcast. And then keep an ear open for when we drop the next Gold Rush. We're gonna be talking about the WCW Hardcore Championship, and that should be a lot of fun here. Uh, and so I guess this is a good time to say goodbye, Bari. We're not gonna miss much of SmackDown. It looks
No, he
like.
won't. Exactly.
Yes. All right. So until next time, for Bari, this is Reb. Reminding y'all, life is hard, work stiff, and we will see you guys later.
Peace.